My sister survives by having sex with men. Otherwise, her skin would slowly shrink, her body would become withered, and she would look like a corpse. Later, my boyfriend secretly got intimate with my sister behind my back. My boyfriend said he wanted to have both of us sisters. I laughed. My boyfriend doesn't know that any man who is with my sister will be drained of his energy by her and die of exhaustion in 3 days at most. No. Don't do this. I came back from the city with my boyfriend Jack. Soon after I entered the house, I heard an unbearable sound coming from my room. I frowned, opened the door, and saw a depressing scene. I saw my extremely beautiful sister making out with a short, big, fat man. What are you doing? My boyfriend Jack got angry. He rushed to the fat man and angrily said, "Get out of here. Who told you to treat a girl like this?" The fat man was very unhappy. He stood up and cursed, "Who are you?" "I'm Lucius' boyfriend. What are you doing here?" Jack was a passionate young man. He clenched his fist and was about to hit the fat man in the face. "With your pig-headed appearance, how can you be her boyfriend? You are clearly forcing the girl. Stop hitting me." Seeing that the two were about to get into a fight, my sister covered herself with a quilt and hurriedly explained, "Mark is indeed my boyfriend." Jack's eyes widened in disbelief. "You are so beautiful, and your boyfriend is short and fat, how can you like him?" "My sister likes black and fat ones, they're strong like this." I put down my luggage and held Jack's hand. "Jack, let's get out of here quickly and don't disturb my sister's good time." I pushed open the door of another room. A rotten smell hit me in the face. There were also dirty clothes scattered all over the bed. Jack waved his hand and said, "Are these all from your sister and that short, strong man?" I was quite embarrassed. "My sister. She likes to be intimate with men, but apart from this she is still very easy to get along with." Jack frowned and said, "Your sister's taste is really different. I really can't understand how she can eat such an ugly toad when she is so beautiful." I shrugged helplessly. "I can't help it, my sister can't live without men." "Can't live without men?" Jack's eyes suddenly lit up and he asked, "Could it be that she is sick? As long as he is a man she will accept him?" I responded casually, "About the same." That night, Jack was always in a hurry to go to the toilet. Rural toilets are dry toilets and are built outside the house. Now Jack has gone to the toilet 3 times. Could he have a stomachache? I was a little worried about him, so I got out of bed and wanted to see what was going on with him. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Jack lying at the door of my sister's room. He was peeping at my sister. My body suddenly froze. An unprecedented sense of crisis permeated my entire body. My sister is very beautiful. She has black hair down to her waist, skin as white as snow, and a slim figure. She is even more beautiful than a female star. But my sister is not a normal person. She is a corpse girl. On the day my sister came of age, she suddenly developed a strange disease. The water and blood in her body seemed to be drained out, and her skin began to shrink and shrivel, turning into a mummy. My parents were very worried and gave my sister all kinds of folk remedies. But my sister's condition did not improve at all. Instead, her skin became more and more shrunken and she was about to die. At this time, an elderly grandmother in the village gave me some advice. She said that my sister might have a disease. Diseases must be cured by men. Only men's masculine energy can cure diseases. So, my parents reluctantly let a 60-year-old man in the village take my sister's virginity. Strangely enough, after my sister had sex with the old man, not only did her strange illness recover, but she also became more beautiful. On the day my sister regained her beauty, it suddenly rained heavily in the village that had been dry for 3 whole years. The old lady said that my sister was a corpse girl sent from the sky. Corpse girls can ensure a good harvest of crops in the village and also ensure the peace and prosperity of the villagers. However, corpse girls often have diseases. My sister must have constant intimacy with men in order to eliminate her disease and better protect the village. So, the men in the village signed up enthusiastically to participate in treating my sister. But after a long time, the men couldn't bear it anymore. Some men even died while treating my sister. In order to allow my sister to continue to protect the village chief ordered the women in the village to leave the village and find men outside to treat my sister's illness. From then on, the unbearable noises in my house never stopped. People in the village respected my sister very much. But I have only endless hatred towards my sister. Every time I bring a boyfriend back from the city, as long as they take a look at my sister, they will be obsessed with her appearance and get intimate with her uncontrollably. This time, it seems that Jack is no exception. But I will never allow exceptions. "Jack, what are you doing?" I pulled the door open with force, making a loud noise. Jack heard the sound and turned his head hurriedly. He looked flustered and said unnaturally, "Sorry Lily, I went to the wrong room." I showed no mercy to Jack and said directly, "I have been paying attention to you for a long time just now. You are obviously peeping at my sister." Jack was embarrassed. I really didn't mean to spy on her. Jack, although my sister is beautiful, she is very slutty. I walked over to Jack, took his hand and said in a softer tone, "Before you, I also had a boyfriend and my sister shamelessly hooked up with him." Actually, I lied. I've had many boyfriends. But without exception, all of them were taken by my sister. Although I was angry, I could do nothing about it. But Jack was not allowed. Jack was the man I loved the most. I would never allow my sister to have a relationship with him. So when I got home, I played a trick and deliberately pushed open my sister's door. Jack's first impression of my sister was that she was bad and promiscuous. But I still underestimated her charm. Jack actually spied on my sister late at night. "Jack, you are mine." I held Jack's hand. "Promise me that you will never visit my sister again, okay?" Jack didn't respond directly to me. He hesitated and said, "Your sister and I live under the same roof. How could we not see each other? If my sister was ugly, you would definitely avoid her, right?" I was very unhappy when I didn't get the answer I wanted. I couldn't help but expose my sister's past and said, "Let me tell you, my sister hasn't always been this beautiful." Jack blurted out, "Could it be that the sister I saw was her in makeup?" "But I don't think so." I said seriously, "My sister never wears makeup, but she becomes ugly when she's not intimate with a man." Jack obviously didn't believe it. He patted my shoulder and said, "Lily, you don't need to slander your sister like this. Don't worry, I promise I will never do anything to let you down." I stood on tiptoe and kissed him on the cheek. "Jack, you must do what you said or you will die. My sister is like a water demon. Once a man gets entangled with her, he will lose control of himself until his essence is drained away and he becomes a dried corpse." "I will die." "How do you think I will die?" Jack thought I was kidding him. He put his arm around my waist and walked towards the room, smiling nonchalantly. "Could it be that in this society ruled by law, you want to kill me?" I shook my head. "Jack, I won't kill you. What will kill you will only be your own greed and lust." Early the next morning, my mother called us to have breakfast. While I was drinking porridge, a lame man barged into my sister's room. Soon, the unbearable sound came from the room again. My mother and I have long been accustomed to it. But Jack was shocked. "Lily, is that lame man also your sister's boyfriend?" I nodded. "Yes, my sister has many boyfriends. My sister's boyfriends take turns on the hour. For example, at 8 o'clock, it's the lame man. At 9 o'clock it might be the butcher. At 10 o'clock, it might be the big dark man from last night." Jack's face didn't look good. "Lily, your sister is like this, isn't she afraid of getting sick?" My mother laughed and said, "These men are here to cure her illness. My daughter just needs men. The more men there are, the faster she will recover. You are my boyfriend, why do you care if she gets sick?" Seeing Jack caring so much about my sister, I got a little angry and yelled towards my sister's room, "Sister, can you please stop making trouble? You're disturbing my meal." Jack advised me, "Lily, if you feel affected, go to the bedroom to eat." I rolled my eyes at him and said, "No, I'm afraid if I leave, you and my sister will flirt with each other." "Hey, my sister is angry." With a series of silver bell-like laughter, the door opened. My sister was carried out by the lame man. She was covered with a thin blanket, but her white legs were still faintly exposed. My sister was like a big white snake, with her long legs softly and bonelessly tied to the lame man. She smiled and said, "Sister, are you still afraid that I will snatch your boyfriend away?" "Don't worry, you watch him so closely, how could I possibly snatch him away?" Then my sister put her hand on her red lips, blew a kiss to Jack and said with a charming smile, "Good morning, brother-in-law." The moment my sister came out, Jack's eyes were fixed on her. He even ignored his image and stared at her. After a long while she stammered in response, "Okay, sister. Good morning. Jack, let's go back to the room." I was a little panicked and pulled Jack's hand hard to walk towards the room. Jack was reluctant to leave and he looked back at my sister every 3 steps. In the room I held Jack's face with both hands and shouted at him, "Jack, wake up." Jack didn't wake up. He swallowed his saliva and couldn't help murmuring, "Your sister is really beautiful, thousands or even tens of thousands of times more beautiful than a female star. My sister is really beautiful." Her skin was whiter and smoother than mutton fat jade, and her figure and face were of the most standard golden ratio. As long as a man takes a look at her, He will obey the most primitive desire in his heart and crawl at my sister's feet. But my sister is a corpse girl. She is extremely dangerous. She is like a charming poppy. All men who touch her are dead. Jack, you said that the person you love the most is me? I cried to Jack with a little bit of hoarseness. I brought you back to discuss the engagement and marriage. After we are engaged, we can go back to the city to get the marriage certificate. Jack finally woke up. He fell to his knees in front of me and looked at me guiltily. Lily, I'm sorry. I promise I will never look at your sister again. From now on, whenever your sister appears, I will close my eyes immediately. Jack's promise finally put my mind at ease. But I still had a strong sense of crisis in my heart. I decided to hold the engagement party as soon as possible. Jack and I left the village early. That night, we started to prepare for the engagement party. At the banquet, the surrounding villagers drank wine and ate meat, which looked warm and lively. Jack and I changed into wedding clothes, held wine glasses, and toasted the neighbors at the table one by one. The widow next door had drunk some wine. She blushed and asked, Lily, after you get engaged, you will move to the city, right? Will you come back in the future? Without thinking, I said, no, I will never come back. All my ex-boyfriends contributed to my sister's medical treatment. Jack, the only one I truly love, follow in the footsteps of my ex-boyfriends. The widow sighed, you have to come back. What if your sister doesn't have a man? What will you do? What does this mean? Jack also drank a lot of wine. He tugged at my sleeve and asked with narrowed eyes, Lily, your sister has no man, what does it have to do with you? I bit my lip and said in panic, the widow was drunk, she said nonsense. Jack didn't take it too seriously. He raised his hand and rubbed his temple again. Lily, the alcohol in your village is really strong. I'm a little drunk too. His legs were shaking and he almost fell down. I quickly helped him back to the room. Jack, you take a good rest here, wait until tonight, we will make love again. Speaking of which, although Jack and I have been dating for many years, I am more traditional and have never crossed the line. Now we are engaged and can finally be together openly. Jack kissed me and said, Lily, I'll wait for you. According to the rules of our village, when a couple gets engaged, they must toast to the neighbors and elders. This way they can get everyone's blessings, and it also means that the couple can have a long and happy marriage. I walked out of the room and continued to toast. The village aunt looked around at me and asked in confusion, Lily, where is your fiancé? I clinked glasses with my aunt and said, Jack is a very honest man. He always drinks up the wine we toast him with. Now he is drunk and is resting in bed. All the aunts and uncles at the table suddenly started laughing. I couldn't help but ask, what are you laughing at? My aunt patted my shoulder and said, Lily, you are so careless. Your sister is beautiful and she can't live without men. You left your fiancé at home alone. Aren't you afraid that something might happen to them? My heart was filled with alarm bells and I ran back home quickly. There was no one in the bed in my room. And from my sister's room, a familiar and unbearable sound came. I immediately broke into my sister's room. Jack had already taken off his clothes, and the two were about to do something indecent. What are you doing? I grabbed the broom next to me and threw it at my sister. Today is my engagement day, Jack. How could you be so mean to hook up with my fiancé? My sister's skin was as tender as tofu. After being swept twice by the broom, blood streaks immediately appeared on her skin. She curled up, tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't hook up with my brother-in-law. You're still lying? I was furious and pounded the ground even harder. I'll beat you to death. That's enough. Jack, who was originally drunk, suddenly became less drunk. He grabbed the broom, threw it to the ground, and angrily said, Nothing happened between your sister and me, stop being crazy here. I gritted my teeth and stared at Jack. You said you would never see my sister again, but why did you see her again and sleep with her? Jack said nonchalantly, I was drunk and went to the bathroom. I went into the wrong room and accidentally mistook your sister for you. We were so noisy that we soon attracted the attention of our neighbors in the village. Jack glanced at me and said, You are not ashamed. He grabbed his clothes from the floor and started putting them on, leaving me behind and going back to the other room. I was furious. He actually felt ashamed? But it was clear that he was the one who did something shameless. All right, let's go drink and eat, what's the point of being so busy here? My sister stood up from the bed and said, Sister, why do you have to marry this unfaithful man? She locked the door, gently stroked my face and smiled charmingly. Why don't you give this unfaithful man to me and let me punish him for you? You are a slut at heart. Don't think I don't know that you have secretly hooked up with Jack several times behind my back. I stared at my sister angrily. If you hadn't been secretly hooking up with me, Jack would never have abandoned me and found you. My sister admitted it frankly. She said proudly, I did hook up with my brother-in-law, who gave me the capital. My face is so beautiful and my body is so soft. No man would reject me. But, Lily, I hooked up with him just to protect you. Don't make excuses for your lewdness. I pushed her away and yelled, without the nourishment of a man, you will become uglier and uglier. Don't forget that your essence is an ugly mummy. Shut up, my sister suddenly got furious. Her long, cold nails tightly gripped my neck. At that moment, her skin began to shrink, like the bark of an old tree, dry and rough. I shouted desperately, you want to strangle me to death? Fine, even if you strangle me to death, it can't cover up the fact that you are a mummy. Yeah? My sister's originally fair face began to shrink. She suddenly let go of me and screamed, man? I want a man. Once my sister gets angry, she will become ugly. Just now, I deliberately angered her and made her ugly. I quickly opened the door and yelled to Jack, Jack, come here quickly, come and see what an ugly thing my sister is. Don't want. My sister was like a rat that was afraid of the light. She held her head with her hands, curled up and kept covering her face. Lily, you've gone too far. At this time, the village chief who was drinking and eating in the house came over. His face was full of majesty, and he said unhappily, if you hurt your sister again, don't blame me for being rude to you. Then the village chief waved his hand. Several men in the village rushed into the room and began to treat my sister. When Jack walked in, he saw my sister struggling with the men. He gave me a disgusted look and said, Lily, I didn't have sex with your sister. What are you jealous of? I suddenly felt very wronged. Obviously, I did all this to protect him. But Jack, in just one day, actually began to hate me. He really disappointed me. That night, Jack began to apologize to me. Lily, I'm sorry. He kissed me on the face carefully and devoutly. Lily, I shouldn't have yelled at you like that just now. At that time, I saw your sister's pitiful look, and I couldn't control myself inexplicably. But Lily, I really didn't mean to scold you. Just hit me. Hit me hard to vent your anger, okay? I didn't say anything, but I was still very angry inside. Jack actually knelt down in front of me. Lily, now we have also held an engagement party. We will soon be husband and wife. After tonight, we will leave here, okay? My mind suddenly flew far away. I had been in a relationship with Jack for several years. He is not a bad person, he is good-looking, and he has rejected many girls for me. If my sister was not so beautiful and seduced, Jack would not have taken the bait. As long as we leave the village quickly and never meet my sister again, Jack must still love me deeply. Thinking of this, I finally let go of my resentment and hugged Jack. Okay, then we will leave the village tomorrow. Lily, you finally agreed to talk to me? Jack was very happy. He leaned over and kissed me again. He kissed me passionately. I knew what was going to happen. I had actually been looking forward to this night for a long time. In the end, I fell asleep contentedly in the fiery madness. When I opened my eyes again, it was already daybreak, but Jack was not beside me. I panicked and didn't even bother to put on my shoes. I subconsciously ran towards my sister's room. Bang! I pushed the door open. I saw Jack and my sister making out. My sister saw me and smiled provocatively. Brother-in-law, you are with me, aren't you afraid that my sister will be angry? Jack hugged my sister tightly, panting slightly. Don't worry, I deliberately broke her virginity last night. She is sleeping like a dead dog now. She will definitely not find us. My sister asked, what if? What if my sister finds out about us? Jack said directly, it won't matter if she finds out. Your sister is very mean. As long as I coax her a few times, she will definitely accept me obediently. When the time comes, I will take the opportunity to ask her for something. I will say that I want to have both of you sisters at the same time. She will definitely agree. My sister giggled and said, then tell me who tastes better, me or my sister. Which one do you like better? Needless to say, it's you. I was filled with anger, but my actions were inexplicably sluggish. I guess I was too angry. I couldn't even control my body. You know, I fell deeply in love with you the first time I saw you. But your sister always said you were a slut and told me not to touch you. I think you must have no choice. You are so beautiful, how could you be with those ugly men? You must have been forced, right? Jack kept saying sweet words to my sister. But don't worry, I'm here, I will protect you from now on, and no other man will touch you again. These love words sound so familiar. Jack also spoke to me once. My mind became increasingly hazy, and I couldn't help but think of the scene when I first met him. I was the first college student in our village. People in the village looked up to me and thought I could find a high-quality college student for my sister. However, I had an ordinary appearance and wore old-fashioned and shabby clothes. The college students in the city not only looked down on me, but also despised me intentionally or unintentionally. At that time, I really wished that I was a tortoise curled up in my shell forever. But the village chief kept putting pressure on me. He said that if I couldn't hook up with a high-quality college student, he would not only cut off my source of income, but also assign the heaviest and most tiring work in the village to my parents. I had no choice but to bite the bullet and hook up with men. This also caused the female classmates in the school to ridicule me. They said I was a female dinosaur, that I was ugly and that I only chased after pretty girls. They also said that I looked like someone who didn't look in the mirror often. If I had looked in the mirror, I would have known that I was ugly. Their ridicule made me very painful, but I could do nothing about it. Since I couldn't hook up with students, I had to be more open about who I was hooking up with. I hooked up with a gangster outside the school. The gangster tricked me and promised to go back to the village with me. But before going back to the village, he said he would take me to meet his parents. I was anxious to take the man to meet my sister, so I fell for it. The gangster took me to a small alley. The dark alley was filled with many men with lewd smiles on their faces. I finally understood that the gangster wanted to hurt me. I tried to run but was pinned to the ground by the gangster. When I thought my life was about to be hopeless, Jack appeared. He went against the light and saved me. But he himself was also beaten by the gangster. During Jack's hospital stay, I took care of him and brought him meals every day. Jack's family was not well off. He did not go to college and was just a car mechanic. But he was good-looking and hard-working. I had already fallen deeply in love with him without realizing it. Jack did the same to me. He admired me very much and thought I was a college student with great talent. So we expressed our feelings to each other and got together. Every time I go home during the holidays, Jack wants me to take him to meet my parents, but I disagree. Jack thought I looked down on him. But he didn't know that I was afraid that my sister would hook up with him. Later we were together for 4 years. I felt that our relationship had withstood the test, so I decided to take him home. But I could never have imagined it. I overestimated Jack's love for me. I am extremely disappointed in him. Oh my! My sister suddenly screamed in the room. She covered her mouth and said in panic, "Brother-in-law, no, my sister is coming." Jack didn't even turn his head. Impossible, she was so tired last night, how could she wake up so early? Jack. I appeared behind him like a ghost. You still did something wrong to me. Jack paused and turned his head stiffly. Lily, why are you here? You think I'm sleeping like a dead dog, don't you? I was still calm, but tears kept flowing down. I hated myself for being so incompetent. At the same time, I secretly swore in my heart. Jack is a dirty man, I won't have any feelings for him anymore. Sister, men are all like this, they like to be indecisive. My sister put her arms around Jack's neck and said seductively, "Go on." Jack tasted my sister's poppy. He was addicted and was completely controlled by my sister. I tilted my head back, forcing the tears that were pouring out to me to hold back. Jack, do you remember what we said before? Jack ignored me, he was in a state of joy. I kept talking to myself. You said you would never see my sister again. You also said you only loved me and would never do anything to let me down. But now you broke your promise and you didn't do it. The price of breaking your promise is death. I walked to the kitchen, took out a kitchen knife and asked, Jack, how do you want to die? A cut in the neck? Bleeding to death or rat poison? The sharp kitchen knife made Jack a little afraid. But he was not afraid. He glanced at me with disgust and said, "We live in a society ruled by law now. Do you really dare to kill me?" I looked at him calmly. Jack, choose how to die quickly. It would be much more comfortable to die in my hands than to die at the hands of my sister. Every man who died because of my sister was extremely painful. The pain was like being a person who hadn't slept for 3 days and 3 nights, knowing that he was about to die, but still uncontrollably being intimate with my sister. When they were about to die, they all shed tears of blood, screamed and wailed, begging my sister to let them go. When daybreak came, the men died. Their bodies were twisted and shrunken, their faces were distorted with pain. They died in despair and unwillingly. Although I no longer have any feelings for Jack. But considering the little things we had together, I decided to give him a comfortable death. I don't want to die, I still want to be your brother-in-law. Jack hugged my sister and said lazily, Lily, you keep saying that your sister is a slut, but what about you? I'm with your sister and you've been watching shamelessly. Are you a slut? I completely lost my mind, screamed wildly and threw the knife at Jack. Jack was scared. his eyes widened, his face filled with horror. "You actually want to kill me?" I didn't waste any more time talking to him. When the knife was about to fall on his head, my sister suddenly reached out to stop him. "No." Bang. The sharp knife fell on my sister's arm, and her arm instantly became shriveled and old. "Ah!" Jack yelled. He stood up and stared at my sister in fear. Your hand, why is your hand in such a weird shape?" My sister didn't take it seriously and giggled. "Why, don't you like me anymore? My hands are in strange shapes because I saved you." She stretched out her ugly arm again and tried to wrap it around Jack's neck. "Come on, let's continue." Jack trembled and stepped back. "You are a monster." "Yes, I am a monster." My sister stood up, stretched out her arms and grabbed Jack. "But have you forgotten what you said to me when we were intimate just now? You said that you love me very much and you will love me even if you die. I don't want you to die now, so why are you afraid of me?" Jack yelled madly, "Monster, don't come over here." My sister giggled and pressed on him. Although my sister's arms were shriveled, her face was still so attractive. Jack sinking again. I walked out with the knife in hand, expressionless. "Jack, you're going to regret this. You will regret that I didn't kill you with one blow." 10. Jack looked like a man who had been hungry for a long time. He stayed in my sister's room for a whole day and night without coming out. My mother patted my shoulder and said, "Lily, this man is not worthy of your love." I took a deep breath and said, "Mom, if I meet a man I like again, I won't bring him home again." I told myself more than once that I would never feel sorry for Jack again. But as soon as I opened my mouth, I felt like my throat had been soaked in salt water and it was extremely uncomfortable. My mother frowned and said, "That won't work. If you don't bring a man, what if your sister shrivels up and dies?" I didn't say anything. But in my heart I was roaring. My sister is shameless and hooked up with the man I love. What does it have to do with me whether she lives or dies? Early the next morning, Jack came out holding my sister. After a whole night of moisturizing, my sister looked more radiant, her skin was white and rosy, and she was as beautiful as a fairy from heaven. Jack's cheeks were sunken and the dark circles under his eyes were particularly noticeable. But he didn't know. He chose to forget the ugly dry look of my sister's arms and tried to please her. "After dinner, let's continue." On the third day, Jack didn't carry my sister out. His legs were shaking, he held on to the wall and trembled as he walked to the dining table. I sarcastically said, "Why, brother-in-law, why don't you continue with my sister?" Jack was still very stubborn and said he had to go to the bathroom. He really walked towards the toilet. "Ah!" After about 3 minutes, he yelled, "Dead man, there is a dead man here. There are dead people, isn't that normal? There is a particularly large room in my house, which is dedicated to the dead. These dead people are all men whose essence has been sucked dry by my sister." I held the bowl, drank the porridge and walked to Jack's side. "It's just a dead person, why are you making such a fuss?" Outside the room, the man's body was shriveled and black, his eyes were wide open, almost popping out of his eye sockets. He looked weird and scary. Jack trembled even more. Didn't you understand? This dead man, he was your sister's boyfriend a few days ago, Mark." "Of course I understand. Mark was the man the widow next door brought from the city. Any man from outside the city would be so indifferent to my sister that he would make love to death. Isn't this normal? What's abnormal is that Mark should have been thrown into the room, so why did he run out?" There are words here. Mark was lying on the ground, tightly grasping a bright red flower in his bloody palm. And there was a word carved in front of his finger. But the handwriting was too crooked, so I didn't pay much attention to it. I was secretly speculating why Mark ran out of the mummy room. After he was thrown into the mummy room, he must have had some energy left and crawled out. How did he die? The impact of the dead body made Jack a little breathless. He pressed my shoulders and shook me vigorously. "Your expression is so calm, you must know how he died, right?" "He died because my sister sucked his energy out of him." I pushed him away easily and said with pity, "Brother-in-law, you will soon become a mummy like him." "Impossible." Jack to the ground and knocked open the half-open door behind him. An extremely unpleasant smell of moldy dried meat that had been stored for a long time hit me in the face. Jack turned his head belatedly. I saw that the room was filled with hundreds of black and dried corpses. "Ah!" Jack's face turned pale and he fled the room frantically like a dog. At this time my sister came over. She was still as beautiful as ever and waved at Jack. "Jack, come and have fun." The shock of the dead made Jack sober up a lot. He shook his head. No. Why not?" "Jack, don't you like me the most?" My sister took the initiative to walk over to Jack and kissed him on the cheek. "Jack, you are the best, right?" "No." Jack finally understood that I had not lied to him. Every man who died had his essence sucked out by my sister. He pushed my sister in fear and looked at me with pleading eyes. "Lily, save me, please save me." I looked at him expressionlessly. "Why should I save you? Didn't you fall in love with my sister the first time you saw her? Besides, you also said that you would protect my sister. Now my sister needs your help. You should sacrifice yourself and protect her." Jack was in pain and despair. He stretched out his hand to me and said, "Lily, the person I really like is you. Do you like my sister? Before, you clearly said that the person you loved was me, but how dare you say in front of me that you like my sister?" "Jack, I'm angry." My sister's delicate skin gradually began to shrink. Her skin was stretched to the extreme, with black and red flesh turned out, and the flesh on her face slowly fell off, turning her into a scarlet corpse that exuded a fishy smell. My sister's mouth, which was left with only bones and teeth, opened and closed, and she laughed seductively. "I am very, very angry now, and I want you to make it up to me." Jack yelled in despair, "Get away, you disgusting thing. Get away. After seeing my sister's true face, you told her to get out? Jack, it's too late for you to regret now." My sister took off Jack's clothes regardless. She grinned and said, "Men love to say the opposite of what they mean. You said get out of here, but you actually want me to get closer to you, right?" She squinted her eyes, pouted her stinky mouth and kissed Jack on the lips. The intimacy continued. Jack was in pain and despair. This is already the third day. This should be Jack's last happy day. Goodbye, Jack. I turned calmly and walked towards the living room. About 20 minutes later, my sister's cry for help suddenly came from the mummy room. "Help!" My sister screamed heartbreakingly, "Sister, save me!" My heart tightened. Although I have always hated my sister, to be honest, my sister and I actually have a symbiotic relationship. My family is very poor. If my sister hadn't been a corpse girl and respected by the villagers, I wouldn't have been able to go to college in the city. Therefore, I will never allow anything to happen to my sister. But Jack had almost drained all his energy from my sister, so how could he hurt my sister? I was very confused. But he didn't care about much and ran towards my sister. Outside the mummy room, Jack no longer had the weakness and lust he had before. He grabbed my sister's neck hard and said, "Bitch, do you think you can hook up with me? I'll kill you." My sister's true colors were revealed, her face was filled with pain. Don't kill me." I rushed out and yelled, "Let my sister go." Jack held my sister's neck with one hand and held a burning lighter in the other hand, yelling at me, "Take me away from your broken village. Otherwise, I will burn your sister to death." My heart tightened. "How did you know that my sister is afraid of fire?" Jack scolded me, "You idiot, you went to college. Before Mark died, he wrote the word fire. Sister, save me." One of my sister's arms had been burned off. She had completely lost her former beauty and became uglier than her usual dry appearance. But I didn't feel any disgust. At this moment, I finally understood a truth. Men are like clothes, they can be discarded at any time. But my sister and I are blood relatives and we cannot abandon each other. I told you to take me away from this damn village, or I'll burn your sister to death. Jack roared and raised his lighter to burn my sister's face. "Ah!" My sister screamed in pain. "Okay, I'll take you out." I agreed hastily. Jack followed me out of the house. At this time, outside the village, a large group of villagers were standing densely. The villagers were holding shovels and other tools, staring at Jack with hostility. Jack put the lit lighter to my sister's face and said, "If you dare to get close to me, I will burn her to death." Even the slightest flame could scare my sister, and she screamed in pain, No, I don't want to die." Led by the village chief, he took a step back and said, "As long as you release the corpse girl in our village, I promise that I will never hurt you." Jack yelled, "Give me a car right now, I want to leave here." The village chief didn't want anything to happen to my sister, so he agreed to Jack's request. Finally, I drove a beat-up tricycle and Jack sat on the back seat with my sister by the neck. The tricycle bumped along the narrow mountain road for a long time. I drove deliberately toward the bumpy road, hoping that my sister would be able to shake off Jack. But Jack knew what I was thinking. He yelled angrily, "If you try to play tricks on me again, I'll kill your sister." I could only drive obediently. After driving for about 3 hours, I saw that Jack had calmed down a lot, so I said carefully, "Jack, you know, you are the only man who can survive my sister's hands. You are really amazing." Jack snorted coldly, "Stop talking nonsense and drive." I continued to relax his guard. "Jack, we are far away from the village now. You will definitely not be caught." "Jack, I'm actually confused. After you made love with my sister, you were shaking even when you walked. How come you suddenly have so much energy? Jack was proud. Mark had a little red flower in his hand, and I accidentally smelled the fragrance of the little red flower, and my spirits rose. I see. Then I feel relieved. I got angry and rushed into the ravine at the edge of the mountain road. Jack yelled, "What are you doing?" "What? Of course I want you to die. I absolutely cannot let Jack out. Once he gets out, the secret of my sister being a corpse girl will be exposed. My sister will die. I will also be implicated. I will never let this happen." Bang. The car rushed down the ravine and overturned. Under the huge force and impact, Jack let go of my sister and the three of us fell down. Before I fainted from the injury, I saw that Jack was the most seriously injured, being crushed by the tricycle and unable to move at all. After my sister was freed from the confinement, she was like a fish in water, greedily absorbing Jack's energy and spirit. When I opened my eyes again, I saw a hideous, charred corpse lying beside me. This person was Jack. My sister absorbed Jack's spiritual energy, her face regained its former beauty. But her body was still dry and weak. She said weakly, "I am almost dying. You have to find a man for me quickly." I nodded, climbed up the ravine with difficulty, and limped to look for the man. After walking for about an hour, I met three spirited young men. They were wearing tight jeans with their hair dyed in three colors: red, yellow, and blue. They were trying to be cool and dancing. "Brother, help me." I waved at them. "Brother, I lost my focus while driving and crashed into a tree and got injured. There's no village or shop in the middle of nowhere. I'm really afraid I'll die. Can you take me to the hospital?" The spirited young men stopped dancing, looked at each other and whispered to each other for a while. Among them, a young man with red hair showed a mouthful of yellow teeth and smiled at me. "Little sister, I can take you to the hospital, but you have to fulfill a wish of our brothers." I asked, "What wish?" He. The energetic young man rubbed his hands. "Let's try something new." I smiled and said, "You guys are so handsome, I'm willing to do it, but there's dirt everywhere here, why don't you go to my car?" The spirited young men all agreed. I led them to the bottom of the ravine. Here, they saw the overturned tricycle and the sister whose body was covered with clothes but whose face was as beautiful as a flower. The moment they saw my sister, the young men lost their minds and rushed towards her frantically. I laughed. There is a knife hanging over your head when it comes to lust. They only saw my sister's beauty. But I didn't realize that there was a pitch-black dried corpse buried not far from my sister.